Welcome to the next installment of Opinions of Value, Valkyrie's very own virtual chat series. We're really glad that you could join us for today's episode. This series was created to encourage open and honest dialogue about the health and state of commercial real estate industry through the lens of commercial appraisers. On Opinions of Value, we will explore everything from the trends shaping the commercial real estate market at large to the challenges impacting the way valuers conduct their jobs in this digital age. And we're excited to dive into this month's episode with an amazing panel of guest speakers. Please welcome Elaine Liz Ramirez, Chief Appraiser at Hancock and Whitney Bank.
Thank you, Lucas. Good afternoon, everybody. Just sitting here the day that Ian is hitting the Florida coast, and prayers to everyone in Florida, and hope everyone stays safe. It was very kind of you to invite me here. So Elaine Liz Ramirez, I'm an MAI, AIGRS, CCIM. I'm the Chief Appraiser for Hancock Whitney Bank. It is a regional bank headquartered in Gulfport, Mississippi. Today I'm coming to you from Biloxi. I am basically the Chief Appraiser for the bank. So I run everything related to real estate valuation and environmental risk. I'm the one who communicates the appraised values or the real estate values to the loan officers. So I stay pretty busy, and everyone loves me or hates me depending on the value. But seriously, I started appraising at a young age. My dad was a realtor and appraiser in Key West, Florida. And so most of my training was prior to my university education and prior to my banking career. I was an active commercial appraiser for 20 years, appraising in Key West, a resort market, and then going into Central Florida, a more traditional market. Currently, I serve as the Region 10 chair for the Appraisal Institute's Board of Directors. And I also serve on the board for RMA, the Risk Management Association's Mid-South chapter. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Next up, we've got Molly Skipper-Steele, Head of Strategic Growth at Appraisal by Walker & Dunlop.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Started out on the commercial appraiser side as a fee appraiser at a litigation and kind of lender-focused specific firm, and over time migrated towards the business development arm of the profession and found it was a good fit working with clients and understanding how they interact with valuations and what their needs are, and working with appraisers to provide those solutions. So as you mentioned, now I'm with Appraisal and run the strategic growth, which is a data-driven and kind of technology-enabled national appraisal firm.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Next up, we've got Jacinto Lunos, Principal at Kojito Realty Partners and Chief Appraiser at Citizens Business Bank.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lucas. I really appreciate it. I always love engaging in dialogue around technology and how it can benefit people in our profession. As you mentioned, one of the arms of my many jobs I seem to have my tentacles out there with is I'm working with Citizens Business Bank, which is an $18 billion bank, so pretty large sized bank, as an outsourced chief appraiser. And that's kind of one of the things that I'm looking to explore and develop a little bit as we take a deeper dive into technology and understand how financial institutions can use our services and our profession to help benefit them without the traditional resources available because of just a lack of qualified people out there. So we're exploring ways to be able to help, mid-size and regional banks with some outsourced chief appraiser roles. But I'm coming to you all today from Orange County here in Southern California. As Lucas said, I am a principal in my own firm, Kojito Realty Partners. We specialize in a little bit of everything from mediation, litigation, arbitrations, and even doing some bank work and helping banks with their chief appraiser resources. But I think this is something that is critical to the success and longevity of our profession. And I look forward to chatting with everyone today. And I think you have a really great panel of people here that I'm happy to be able to share this time with, like we did at the national convention. So thank you for having me, Lucas.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jacinto. Next up, we've got John P. Biore, Commercial Appraisal Review Specialist at First Republic Bank.
Hi, Lucas. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on this panel with my esteemed panelists here. So yeah, I've been involved in real estate now for about 20 years, 3 years as a property manager and a commercial real estate appraiser ever since then. I was working on the fee side for many years. And for the last 3.5 years, I've been at First Republic Bank as a reviewer. I'm an MAI. My function at the job is reviewing the appraisals, dealing with vendors. And one of the things I've been involved in recently is a couple of, tech projects to enhance the firm's real estate, technological footprint, and where we can leverage some new technology out there to help the bank perform better. So I'm happy to talk about that here. As Jay said, looking forward to discussing as we did back at the National Convention.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. And finally, we've got Grant Norling, VP of Client Experience at Valkyrie.
Thank you, Lucas. I really appreciate being on the show today. Like you said, I'm Vice President of Client Experience at Valkyrie. I was in the fee appraisal world for approximately 20 years, and the last a little over a year, I've been full-time with Valkyrie, helping appraisers become technology enabled. And so I've helped several hundred appraisers go through the adoption process here at Valkyrie. Excited to discuss this topic today.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining. And on today's episode, we're going to dive into a topic that is currently affecting every commercial real estate appraiser: technology adoption. From property inspections to assembling reports and everything in between, more and more innovative solutions are coming to market to improve efficiency and mitigate challenges in the appraisal process. So let's jump in here. In your opinion, when it comes to technology adoption, where does the commercial real estate appraisal industry stand? Maybe we'll start with Elaine. Kick us off.
Thanks, Lucas. So I think over the last 5 to 10 years, the commercial real estate market, or the appraisers, have been dabbling in technology. I think that we have some ground to make up, because it's all about, I just heard Grant say, client experience. And so for me, coming from the fee side and now being on the bank side, what I see is that our profession just really hasn't kept up with what the client's expectations are and what we need to deliver as a profession. So I would say, we have report writing software, we have national data sources for listings and sales that help us in our analytical in analyzing markets and our analytical abilities. We have drones and measuring apps, but I think we need to really sit back and integrate all of that with what the client's expectations are. All of the users, I come from the bank side, but there are many users of appraisal reports, and do we understand what those users' needs are? So I like client experience. I think that's a big miss by the appraisal profession over the last few years.
I'll echo what Elaine just said. I think when it comes to technology adoption, the CRE appraisal industry is a laggard. I mean, the CRE has traditionally lagged technology overall as an industry. Appraisal industry even worse. There are tools out there that can definitely be used better, and it's from the vendors to the banks to the users, really running the whole gamut. And I think that's what's so great about this panel right here and this talk, is that we can bring some of these to light, and if we can get the word out there and demystify it, sort of, where we all need to be adopting these, from the top down.
That's so well said. I think between kind of a new generation of trainees coming in and the senior average age of an appraiser within the market today, there's such a disconnect between what's kind of an average technology function, but it's so important to kind of debunk the myth that only national firms are working with technology. It's the independent appraisers that have a specialty in West Virginia and are using Starlink for more reliable internet access and different ways to kind of make your inspections a little more efficient and kind of capturing those notes and measurements and bringing it back to your report writing software, so that way you can get that client experience and faster delivery and just ultimately support your goals.
Yeah, and to some of the points that were made here, faster delivery is fantastic, but the one thing that we have to ensure, and everyone who's on the banking side I'm sure would agree, is that quality still needs to be there. And I think that's where technology helps us be better at what we do. It helps us connect the dots with the abundance of data, with the democratization of data. It can make decision making for some people, and I've seen this in the daily lives of appraisers, where now they're confronted with so many points of data that it's taking them longer in some instances, and that's why using tools, like even basic tools like Excel and other tools to kind of just separate and make sense of the data. I think there's small tools, and for some people it's going to be small steps, but I think everyone in our profession obviously can benefit. And the people who are coming on as trainees and straight out of college, they're going to be adopters of it, and they're going to look for companies that actually have these resources available to them who aren't still using. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there are a lot of firms out there that still use some antiquated systems, and they are doing fantastic. But imagine if those same firms could employ some of the technology that's out there that's available to them today. I think they would be even that much more efficient and be able to provide their clients with even better service. Because when it does come down to is, at the end of the day, I've always said that appraisers tend to have a tough time with customer service and understanding what those client expectations are. But clients are expecting things faster with that same high degree of quality, and that's where technology is going to be able to help us kind of make that relationship in the market between all the data out there and making decisions and supporting our value conclusions.
It's so well said. I think the piece with kind of helping the quality maintain a high level, and what can appraisers do to kind of help themselves meet the expectations that you mentioned, Elaine. If you've got something like a Lotus or WordPerfect or report writing platforms that are no longer serviced, you're doing yourself a disservice by not kind of taking a baby step towards something that is just widely adopted by the industry, and not just real estate evaluation, but well outside. So you have greater levels of technical support. And then if you get into something that's a little more advanced with some of the report writing softwares or other technical components that have some API integration, so you still get kind of an influx of the data, but to really focus in on the analysis piece, you're spending your time on less formatting, which like decreasing just table formats and headers and different fonts matching throughout the report, and just kind of the consistency that shows that level of professionalism and speaks on your behalf. So you don't always have to speak for yourself, but it'd be really nice when times come to a table of, you've got real estate taxes versus property taxes, and how are those being analyzed. So there's a lot of time saving to be had, no matter what tech you're using.
I love the Jacinto's democratization of data. The data is out there. How to corral it. This will, the appraisers out there now can use this technology to better filter this data and put a better quality report out there, which will make their lives easier so they can move on to the next one. It's as simple as that. But the quality has to be there. And that's where, technology should be looked at as, a helpful tool to do that. It's not something that's going to write your report, but it's going to make you be a better appraiser and stand out among your peers if you're able to use it correctly.
Yeah, so technology helps you align the data quicker, which gives you as an appraiser, the opportunity to spend more time actually appraising.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about and kind of looking into competitive advantages that come from leveraging technology, and curious, what you guys think about some of those competitive advantages, and, are these benefits different for small shops versus some of the bigger firms out there?
I think that they are. I'll start with that one, Lucas. I definitely think with some of the platforms that are out there today that are enabling us to be able to write appraisals more efficiently. There are other services out there. I think that's because, again, remember, I think the largest valuation advisory firm in the country has a 4% market share. That tells you how many independent firms are out there. And I think that's where technology has really got to really hone in and focus. And how can we service that technology and be able to provide platforms that make those independent firms that are 1 or 2 person operations competitive with the national firms by like providing services that help maybe aggregate some of the data up front, put comparables in your database, look for some of those streamlined efficiencies that are done up front. So to John's point, the appraiser can focus on the valuation component and getting that number right. To me, that's the most important thing. You know, we see a lot of stuff in the front of the appraisal, your executive summary, your letter of transmittal, your regional analysis. But what it all hinges on, what we're paid for, is our expertise in that valuation component. And whatever can get us to that number faster with the high level of credibility as outlined in USPAP. And you know, that's what we're after, and understanding finding, harvesting, and using those tools to make you a better appraiser and provide your client with that level of service that they expect. That is what's going to bridge this profession into the future.
I'll add, competitive advantages. I mean, I'm working for a bank, quicker turn times, the quality component, not having these mistakes in the reports where I have to go back as a reviewer and have them corrected. It's that report consistency. And I think, look, there's benefits whether you're a national firm or a small firm, but I kind of feel in some ways that the small firms, because they're only, could be 1, 2, 3 people, or even a little bit bigger, need this even more because, they're the ones that, in order to be efficient, they have to turn out these reports at a quicker rate than a national firm does with multiple people. So in some ways, I think it's an absolute necessity for a small firm to have these.
Couldn't agree more. I think even take report writing aside, even the communication, everyone deserves a vacation. And so if you can kind of build in a system where you can record Loom videos so that you walk through the adjustments and can send that off to a trainee to study while you're out of the office, that's a resource you can use. If there's Slack, so that way when you're out on inspection, you can kind of send questions back and forth more quickly. Teams, same thing. Technology is kind of small baby steps towards something, not some big giant thing that requires an overhaul of process. Do one step at a time and find the efficiencies along the way. I think it'll increase your appetite.
Yeah.
But that's why I love the companies who are working on technology that have these videos that show you how to use their software, step by step. You want to learn how to pull down a market neighborhood, section, and here's how to do it step by step. Because that was one of the biggest things in one of my former roles with the big bank. We had people there who were their trainees and who were there 40 years. And, when I first got there, people were saying, well, you're never going to be able to get those people to move who've been here 40 years. You're never going to get them to adopt, paperless environments. And within 9 months, we had a lot of those things resolved. All of them went paperless within 9 months. And, it just took sometimes having to sit down. Molly just talked about videos or other techniques that we can use to help get people up to speed. And some are just going to take a little bit longer than others. But those who adopt, you'll see it. You'll see an apparent difference in their quality and in their overall work product.
My sense of
go ahead, Elaine.
Sorry. My sense of the appraisal profession as a whole is that we really lagged in embracing the new products, the slimmer products. We kind of felt we didn't know how to write a short story. We've been boxed in by USPAP. And I think we have to learn that our customers and our clients, from a bank perspective, our loans are risk-based. We don't need the long story for all of our loans. We need short stories. And so that really led to the technology coming in, which I think is a good thing. And I think all our listeners need to know that, even the banking and the bank, we're slow to implement, but we're all implementing systems that talk to each other, so we're not typing things in 2 and 3 times. And so I think we have to think differently as appraisers, and understand that our process is tied to other processes, and there are processes behind us. There's insurance behind us. So we need to be quicker. And it is integrating technology into your process, but it's also rethinking your process. So I just want to think back, as I was thinking about this, the theme of the podcast is think about Sears Roebuck. In the 1890s, they had a catalog. It was 300 pages. They were innovative. I mean, when I was a kid, we got the catalog and, marked what we wanted for Christmas, right? But they didn't do so well when the internet came out and technology came out. You would have thought they would have been the Amazon. Think of Circuit City. They were buying brick and mortar stores and didn't think about, creating online stores. So I think that's the point where the appraisal profession is today. We really need to pivot. We've been reactive. We need to have conversations with our users, real good, deep conversations about their needs, and then really bring on the technology, be proactive, and get ahead of it.
Blockbuster and Netflix, don't be Blockbuster.
Exactly.
Grant, did you have anything else to add there?
I just think, from a competitive position standpoint, I'm thinking of the next generation of appraisers and our industry's ability to attract talent. We're not only in competition with each other, we're in competition with other industries that are offering a tech-enabled environment. And any firm in our industry that is providing technology is that one step closer to being able to attract the next generation that are going to be the leaders of the appraisal industry someday.
Yeah. Really, every step that we take towards innovation and adopting technology is one step further from being a laggard in the industry. And it somewhat leads to our next question. How are tech-enabled appraisal companies performing compared to the non-tech-enabled firms? When it comes to turn times and report consistency, what are you guys observing? And especially interested in hearing from the folks from the banking world as well.
Oh yeah, so the nationals definitely are using a lot of the report writing software, and they're just getting it done quicker. And I know that my staff really enjoys reading reports that are somewhat standardized by food group, obviously, on the commercial side. But it makes, it helps my production internally. So it helps us produce and achieve more efficiencies on the bank side. And don't you want to be a hero to your client, and help them out? I mean, it's a win-win for both of us. So absolutely, we do see that. One of the challenges that we've seen are just maybe a failure on the appraiser side. I think you're not going to spend so much time writing the report, but we really need somebody reviewing it on the appraiser side, on the vendor side. So we see some gaps there, which reduce the quality or require us to go back for revisions. But I think that's fixable. And again, I think that comes down to process change, right? So you're not spending a lot of time on the report writing. You've got your data really efficient, gaining data efficient using sources and verifying that data. And then you just have a little bit more robust review. And so again, I think it's just changing up your processes. We've done a lot of that internally on our end as well with some of our processes, and it works, but it really does take, again, thinking through the entire process and how you can insert the technology, where you can insert it.
I think you brought up such a good point about the internal side, understanding the technology. So if you kind of work on just the production appraisers and analysts adopting the tech, but ignore the internal reviewer understanding it to its full capacity, that's also elongating your time of turning around internal revision comments or when the bank comes back with something else. So I think it has to be much more holistic approach, but be interested to see what John has to say.
Well, I hope that some of that, because I think we're there have been issues with internal review. I've noticed. I'm hoping that it's more an effect of the extreme amount of volume that we've had the last 2 years. As things start to normalize, I'm hoping there'll be more time dedicated to that. As far as the report consistency, yes, I've seen, as Elaine mentioned, I've seen, quicker turn times for sure, less minor errors in the report, which is huge, because that can really gum up the works. And I hate to go to somebody and say, well, that you have an error here, and if it's on one here or there, then that's okay. But when there's a lot of these minor errors in the report, as the appraisal, appraisal institute review theory course will tell you, accuracy issue. And then you start pulling the string, so to speak. So there's a lot less of that. And, when there are mistakes, usually if they're small mistakes, the firm with the better use of technology can turn the revision quicker, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that consistency plays a huge role. Again, in one of my prior roles in the bank, we were one of the only organizations in the country that had an internal appraisal team, and we did it end to end significantly faster, and every piece of that was faster, from the appraisal piece to the review piece. I mean, most banks, the review pieces still, they usually generally give banks, reviewers 5 to 7 days to complete a report. A review internally. We were doing that in less than half that time. So when there is consistency, when there is technology built out that provides that level of consistency, it's evident, and we see that even in smaller firms who I know are employing technology. I will see that. I mean, the reality is, everyone has a certain number of jobs they can do. Let's just say in 2 weeks. Let's just say that you can complete a job on average every, say 4 days. Well, in 2 days, in a 2 week period, you're going to be able to finish roughly 2.5 or 3.5 jobs, somewhere around there, right? 15 business days, maybe almost 4. But if you can shorten that average from 4 days to 2.5 days, now you can definitely complete 4. And I mean, it enables you to be able to complete more in a shorter time by employing technology and getting that average number of hours per job down. Instead of doing an average job in 30 hours, if you can get it down, even 20% to 24 hours, that allows you to either put out more production and take on more work for your client and make more money, or take more time off and have that work-life balance that Molly had talked about, having vacations and doing those kinds of things. But either way, there's got to be something that's going to happen in the next generation of appraisers, because they're not seeking to work 80-hour work weeks like generations before us. It's just not, and they're smarter for that, because again, they want to employ technology so that way they can have that work-life balance and make the same amount of money as people did in prior roles.
I think it's funny because it all goes back to Elaine's comment of really listen to the client of what you're looking for. That if you have, you're hesitant to adopt some technology, but you take the time, you call the reviewer, you call the chief appraiser, you better understand what they're looking for, what they're reading the report for, understanding their method and process so that you can build that into your ultimate delivery. It's going to save you so much time. Client satisfaction is going to be much higher. And you now have a partner in embracing this, because everyone's adopting this in different ways, but we're doing this as a profession together. So I think remembering that this is kind of a team effort as a whole, it's going to benefit all parties.
Yeah, we interview all prospective clients and try and figure out what their biggest pain points are. And very consistency, it is quality control, being able to put out a product that is consistent and meeting the demands of the market. And so, that quality control piece that you guys have, each one of you discussed, is critically important, and it's on the minds of the marketplace as well.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is don't let it understand client expectations, but don't let it get to the point where you're writing a custom report for each client, because then it comes into that scope creep where then you're just gonna be wasting your time. You want to make sure that you're writing something that's USPAP compliant, that meets the expectations of a client, but not so much where you feel like you're writing a custom report every time, because then that takes the efficiency out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you talking a little bit about, appraisers making more money or being more efficient with their time. And, who in this industry wouldn't want to make more money or, make the same amount of money in less time, right? It's a no-brainer. And if there's an ability to do that and you can do it through utilizing technology, it seems like, everybody would sign up for that. If you could bid shorter turn times at higher fees, your clients, are going to be happier because they're getting that work done a lot quicker, and in turn you're making more money. So I mean, it's really a win-win for everyone. There's a no loss situation there. So as we've talked about a little bit here and there, we've talked about property data. So how is technology really increasing valuers' access to accurate and reliable property data? It's obviously a really critical component of the appraisal.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, it's the most critical piece to the appraisal is, that's the data is where we live as appraisers, and understanding how to analyze that data. And if there are tools out there that are going to help you kind of, again, sort and analyze the data more efficiently, then we've got to put those tools to use, because again, data is where we live as appraisers, and that's where we make our money. That's where we can put together a very solid opinion of value. But we also, again, as appraisers, you've got to make sure that you get that key component, because the one thing that I still hear, surprisingly, is that people are not confirming that data piece. And that's the one piece that is still really, really needed in this business. If there was one thing that I tell people, it's make sure you're confirming those data points, because that's what's really going to help develop your value opinion and give it that credibility.
When I
totally agree.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elaine.
Sorry, John. I totally agree with Jay. So that was my pain point is data verification, and then a succinct communication of your conclusion. Lead the reader from your data to what the value conclusion is. And that's really it. I mean, that's really, sometimes less is more. And I think, coming from my dad, one thing I told my dad was, having too much data is just as bad as having too little data, because he would throw all the data in an appraisal. And I'm like, no, it's just as bad as too little. So really lead the reader. That's what we're looking for. Give us the market data so that as a reviewer, I can say, yes, this all makes sense. I would conclude to that value. They've led me here. And so, yeah, data verification is really big. We're seeing with the big data, what we're seeing is not, the appraiser not verifying the data. So that's a pain point in the bank. I don't know if John is seeing that as well, but.
Believe it or not, let me just, one thing I want to say, believe it or not, I was talking to a chief appraiser of a relatively decent sized bank, probably in the top 30. And he had a conversation with an appraiser about one of the data pieces. His reviewer found something that was slightly different. And the appraiser told him, well, if I knew you wanted me to verify the comps, I would have charged you more. Well, we want you to verify. That's part of it, instead of just grabbing stuff from your database and moving forward. Yes, that's technology is the database, but ensuring the quality of that database is also part of what we do. And that's why it's really important that appraisers are out there. And I used to Elaine's point, I used to see this appraiser we used to review, and he would just throw 30 comps in there, 20 comps in there. And it's basically like, decide for yourself. And it's not what I want. I want someone to logically lead me through the analysis. So that way, what I like to do as a reviewer back in the day is turn the page after reading this page and saying, okay, this person's going to conclude to like maybe 250, 260 a square foot. And ta-da, it's there. that's, if it's already in the grid, I can read that. I don't need you to rewrite everything that's on the grid again.
Mhm.
I think that goes to what we were talking about before, where using the tools to your advantage,
Yeah.
making you be a better appraiser. So you have now, like you said, we have all this data available. So how do we filter it using technology to be able to filter it and then use our special skill as appraisers to run that data down and put it in a report usable? When I first started, somebody I worked with said to me, you know, John, we're not in the real estate business. We're in the information business. And I thought that was a very interesting thing to say. And especially nowadays where we have more access to that data and information, being able to use technology and leverage technology to be able to really filter that data and do what we do best. And as far as data verification, if we're using technology to save time and make us more efficient, then maybe a little bit of the extra time should be used to verify that data.
We're not going to the courthouse anymore. I used to drive to the courthouse and come back with all these sales and use the film. So, I mean, absolutely, the data sources are so accessible, right? And the courthouse was only open till 5 p.m. We can work at night now and search all those data sources. So yeah, I think we need to really focus, and I think some of the national firms have done this correctly. When I speak to processes is, there are people that can provide you the inputs, and then your analyst can do the analysis. So you have bifurcation. And I think as appraisers, we're kind of holding ourselves to do every step of that appraisal report or that development. And I think it's pretty slick that, somebody can research and give you. My dad did that for me. That's how I started. I would do the research, give it to him. He'd put the data together. I'd write the fundamental of the report and then stick in, all the valuation that he did, put that in the report. So we kind of did that back in the 80s without realizing that it's applicable to today with technology, and technology is so slick. Yeah, we need to think bigger.
I love that everyone has some war stories from back in the day of how they had to trudge through 5 feet of snow to go to the courthouse, or different maps that you'd find historic property data. So it's amazing to see now, just with the API that you can have with all of these different third-party sources, but treating that as a lead. So then the appraiser can kind of take their next steps and then verify all of that and focus on more of the actual analysis and risk assessment that's subject to kind of the property and the local market. But certainly not I have the data, now I'm done. That's your starting point.
It sounds like
I say a fifth grader can do that. I've told appraisers that a fifth grader can grab information and calculate the average and the mean and the median.
Mhm.
You don't need an appraiser for that.
You want real insights. But it sounds like it was harder to be an appraiser 20 years ago than it is today, right? So, what are some of the major obstacles preventing tech adoption for commercial real estate appraisers? It seems like it's a no-brainer in a lot of senses.
Yeah, I think it's
Self-inflicted.
complacency. I mean, as appraisers, we're naturally complacent, right? I mean, how many appraisers are working up till midnight the day a report is due to get it in? And I think it's just complacency, and it's fear. Fear is what drives a lot of our decisions. Fear of change, right? But I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for change, we'd still all be sitting in a cave by a fire. So I mean, we evolve and we change, and I think you just have to, sometimes just put your toe in the water to get a feel for how the water is. And maybe it's again, I think what I love too is that, these companies, when they build that relationship, when they get out there with their clients and get on the phone with their clients and kind of show them how to do things step by step sometimes.
I have to agree with that, because, I mean, yeah, some people will turn around and say it's the cost, but there are some, tech tools that really are not that expensive. They're apps, they're free. You can, even the small things like, okay, if I want to go paperless, I have a Dropbox account, I'll, use Office 365. These things are not that expensive, and it's really just a one-time investment to really bring you that efficiency in the future. So when I look at this, it just has to be that mentality, oh, we've always done it this way, so I'm going to keep on doing it this way. It's too hard to change. And I'm not trying to, put a big brush on appraisers and I don't want to do that because, sometimes it's not easy to change the way that you've been doing things. I think just people need to have an open mind. And once you get in there and do it, and we've heard stories where I was the worst with technology. Somebody showed me how to do this. And, what have I been missing? And now I do. Anybody can adopt it, and really at any age. So I think it's keeping that open mind and getting over the fear.
And if cost is the one thing, only one point. If cost is the one thing, then they have to ask themselves, like, how many more files could I complete for, $350 or $700 a month? That is, it should never be cost.
Mhm.
Well, cost, if you don't invest today, then there's opportunity cost there, right? You're going to lose in the future. And I would sum it up by saying, we as a profession, and I love this profession, I was raised in this profession, this is the profession that I know, is we have to get out of our comfort zone. And I do that we're not growing unless we're out, we feel uncomfortable. You have to get yourself to feel uncomfortable and you have to grow. Now I say grow or die, but I'm going to, minimize that today and say grow or be left behind, but it's the truth. And my dad invested, I'm going to say, yay, dad. I remember in 1988 when he spent $6,000, which was a lot of money at the time, to have a computer specialist develop a job tracking program. It is still in use at our appraisal company that we sold in 2005, and it tracks every leg of the job. And I mean, he taught me that. When I was comfortable using Word Perfect and he said, we're going to Word, I was like, oh no. But, he taught me to be innovative, and it's how I've survived. And I think that our profession just needs to embrace that and full steam ahead.
It's such a good mindset. So if you look at yourself and kind of analyze your own business, is it the accounting piece that's taking time? Is it a hesitancy to adopt because you're worried about the time out of production to train yourself and then be able to train and relay kind of a more reliable rollout process to the rest of your staff? So if you take that minute, kind of assess what areas you're spending more time on, where are some that could be outsourced with some resources that are easier to learn. There are quick videos out there. And then kind of recognize that you have to lay the groundwork for yourself in the future. There's too much time and too many reasons why not to do something when you could have been taking 3 or 4 baby steps that would already help your process.
Yeah, we had a prospective client pull out the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it," and my response is, the way you explained it, it's pretty broke. So I think that the resistance is real, and I think it's so laden with fear of, I can't get over the hump. This is going to slow me down. I won't be able to get my projects done. The people that work for me aren't going to adopt this. And I think helping bridge that fear gap is going to be one of the most important things of our industry to actually really move forward with tech adoption.
Yeah, well said, Grant. And to the next question here, maybe a super short response in terms of what you guys think, but what interesting tech tools are available for appraisers to use while in the field? What technology are you guys seeing?
Well, like I referenced before, even if you just want to start small, go paperless, you can have a paperless office, collaborative software that you can communicate with your teams remotely, whether it's through Teams or other similar Dropbox. I mean, laser measuring tools out in the field. There's apps where you could, check out dimensions of the buildings. All these little, and of course, report writing software, depending on how far you want to go. But all these little things add up. So, they are out there. I'll leave it for the rest of the group to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, you can use your iPad for a variety of apps that are out there. Like I said, in that former role where we were within a bank, the appraisers, they all switched over to completely paperless. We went paperless work files, but then they went fully paperless. using iPads for inspection apps, for cameras, for downloading right into their software. And again, using stuff like OneDrive if you need to access a rent roll while you're out in the field. One of the other things too that I would love to see is when I talk to appraisers about some of the appraisal writing platforms out there, one of their fears is all of their old reports. You know, what if I did this job a year ago and now I've got to start it all over again? Either some type of service that would recreate their reports for them in that software, or something that would have an API or something that could, you know, import that into the new platform. But again, those are some of the tools that I'd like to see. But I still remember my first technology tool was a Kodak DC 280 camera with the little flash drive on the side, and it was like $600 back in the day, and I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Now, I would say I shouldn't have to say this, but you know, Excel. From what I hear, that maybe some people might be using Lotus, and I hope that's not the case too much. But I shouldn't have to say Excel, but maybe.
Yeah.
I think focusing on making sure that there's a comp database. You may know which report you did at one time, and some comparables from that may be applicable and need to be updated. And having that live in one appraiser's brain versus something that everyone else on the team can access. But it goes back to kind of the quality of any database. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a steady verification process, really kind of looking at yourself from a managerial standpoint, saying what process and procedure and expectations am I putting in place for my staff to follow in my footsteps to deliver what the client's been looking for? Because, you know, all roads lead back to the client service and quality that the appraisers are putting out. So what other tools can just make that a little more efficient?
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you, guys. To our final question, and kind of closing out here, technology adoption continues to accelerate across the commercial real estate industry. As you look to the future, what technology trends are emerging that might leave appraisers behind if they don't become tech-enabled?
I can start. It was sort of referenced before, but I think we're trying to attract a more young and diverse group into our field. They're looking for work-life balance, a tech-enabled office. They can work quickly and they can make money. So in order to be competitive, especially in this type of job market where, you know, despite the economic headwinds, it's still a very, very tight job market. You know, the commercial real estate appraisers, small firms, large firms, are going to have to be tech enabled in order to attract that talent.
I think I'm going to stick to my theme. I believe that, you know, it's understanding your clients and users and what technology they're using. Have those conversations. There's nothing wrong. You're not violating any federal law by asking them what their needs are. When I remember 7 years ago, it's probably 10 years now, we wanted to pick some vendors to do some evals for us in our market footprints. And we literally, in a 5-state footprint, I think we had 4 folks that got on board with that. And in 2017, when the interagency republished the eval guidance, my phone was blowing up that next morning for folks that wanted to do evals for us. And we had vendors completing evals for 5 years at that point for us, a slim amount for folks, but it's be innovative, have the conversations. Yes, you can provide restricted reports, an appraisal report. You can meet USPAP. Don't let USPAP handcuff you, be creative and think outside the box.
Yeah, I think that, the trend is towards connectivity and data connectivity. So if you're not adopting technology now, when that true connectivity in the marketplace occurs, you're going to get left behind because you're using antiquated tools that are not going to be compatible with the direction that the entire commercial real estate industry is going. So to answer your question is, the technology is just going to keep accelerating faster and faster. And the longer you wait to adopt technology, the further you're going to be behind, and you might get left completely behind.
And that's also including kind of the methods of report delivery itself. So before, could have been printing out, mailing, or delivering a copy of a report, and now printing to PDF and sending that electronically, and then XML files. So this is going to just impact the ways you can deliver a simple report, not including all the other efficiency that it takes to produce it, but just as that continues to advance and grow and different lenders' needs change, how you interact with the data and report writing process is going to be critical to that.
Great.
Yeah, I think everyone said a bunch of great things. And I would just say, to Grant's point, get on the carousel, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
And you've got resources. You can always, that's the beautiful thing about this profession, is that it's such a close-knit and well-supported group. So you can always call a colleague or a competitor in another market and just ask what their pain points have been and learn from some of their lessons and mistakes and implement into your own practice.
That's a great point, Molly. That is a great point.
Yeah, John, isn't the Appraisal Institute spearheading an entire effort for technology adoption?
That is correct. That is correct.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. And all the chief appraisers speak, so we know who you are. Really, you to get a bids awarded. If you want to get engaged, you almost have to be, you have to use technology. If you're not using technology, then the banks are upgrading their technological resources, and you will be left behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's amazing how much collaboration happens in the appraisal industry, and it's really a testament to how we look at our peers and how much we respect our peers in the industry. But that's all the questions that we have time for today. Thank you to our guests, Elaine, Molly, Jacinto, John, and Grant, all for joining us, and thank you for your invaluable insights and observations about technology adoption in commercial real estate appraisal. Until next time, I'm Lucas Roeder, and this has been Opinions of Value.